Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about 3 ways to stop wasting valuable time in midlife so you can regret-proof your life. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your master certified coach and midlife mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode, which is all about coaching you on 3 ways to stop wasting your valuable time. I'm sure you'll agree this is a super important thing when you are trying to be more intentional in your life. Now, this episode is for you if you are becoming more and more aware of the passage of time and not being dialed in the way you want to be. That means you see yourself wasting valuable time and it is driving you crazy with frustration. I have a feeling you're ready to get unstuck on this issue and move forward already. But just quick, before we dive into that, I want to make sure you know about a great option for how you can get unstuck and excited about your life again, no matter how and why you're stuck. I'm talking about taking action and doing something about it when you know you're meant for more and you're just watching yourself in your deep pile of stuckness. Here's the thing. I was there too for 5 years between 45 and 50 years old. That's 260 weeks of spinning and indulging in confusion. Oh my God, it was terrible. I can help you get unstuck. I learned so much from that experience, but you can't just sit there and wait for something amazing to happen in your life. You have to do something. This is exactly why I created the Women in the Middle Academy. It's now a 12-month group coaching program. It used to be 6 months, and I've changed it to lasting twice as long for the same price. And if that is not exciting enough, please know that when you apply yourself and do the work, coaching together in the Academy will help you get unstuck and create your happiness blueprint for your future, including starting to think about shifting into exceptional self-care, developing more meaningful relationships, finding your purpose, being more intentional about relationships, or even reimagining your empty nest or retirement or both, and so much more. And by the way, whatever midlife transition you're thinking about, that can also include having more fun, and we absolutely work on that too. So if you're ready to change your life for good and feel more relaxed and confident about your future, alongside of an amazing community of like-minded women, let's talk about it. I would love to be able to help you get unstuck and be happier and more fulfilled than you've been in ages. So go ahead and book your free, no-obligation momentum call at www.talktosusie.com, and we will talk about what this could mean for you. Okay, now let's dive in. We're talking about wasting time today. To be specific, 3 ways to stop wasting valuable time in midlife so you can regret-proof your life. First, I want to invite you to relax and embrace this about yourself. It's common. You are not alone. And you're also not alone if you have a keen sense of time urgency these days as a woman in the middle. Experiencing time is interesting. It's not just that time flies when you're having fun. It also flies when you're getting older. It's slow when you're waiting for a vacation. It's just plain weird after COVID. I can't place anything these days in terms of time, in terms of when it happened since COVID. Okay, you get the point. Getting older is related to thinking about time, thinking about the passage of time, thinking about wanting to do things before it's too late. And that means, quite frankly, thinking about what you want to do before you die, before you really run out of time. And I've done several episodes about time weirdness in midlife, so check the show notes and you'll see them there. One of them was episode 238, Time Warp and Time Perception in Midlife. So there's more goodness about time and about how weird it is. I guess what I think about when it comes to wasting valuable time is at 2 levels, the big picture and here and now. The big picture time issue is mostly about when you waste gobs of valuable time not doing what you really want to do, like you do everything else but the thing, probably because you're afraid to do the thing at some level. For me, this was becoming an entrepreneur. I have been dabbling with being an entrepreneur since I was about 12 years old. I usually had some kind of side gig, everything from making earrings from Fimo clay to creating a time capsule product with a partner to dabbling in direct sales. All this stuff over the last, oh my gosh, most of my life. I have always had the entrepreneurial mindset, but I didn't go the business route in university or take the leap of faith into owning my own business before I was 50. Full time, I mean, right? It's not that I was wasting time exactly, like maybe the way you're thinking about it, because I was still growing and I was experiencing things that would ultimately help me as an entrepreneur, but I wasn't starting in a solid, serious way, which meant, to me, wasting valuable time. It can also be a personal goal type of thing. I often use bicep curls as an analogy in my life. I marvel sometimes at how consistent I've been producing this podcast. You are listening to episode 399 right now. That's been one podcast a week since July 2017. I've been more consistent with this than anything else, really. I mean, I know I wash my hands and I brush my teeth. That's all really consistent. But you know what I mean, something that you're trying to be really disciplined about and then following through. So what I always think about is just imagine what my arms would look like if I was consistent with bicep curls. Like if I was doing bicep curls for the same amount of time I've been producing this podcast, oh my gosh. It begs the question about how you make decisions in your life about so-called priorities. Think about that. Now remember, what you do or don't do comes from the way you feel about the thing. And that's related to the way you think about it, which is always optional. The good news is that you can tweak your thinking, but when left unchecked and perhaps even unsupervised, you risk doing a whole bunch of things on autopilot or by thinking things that don't support your priorities. Okay, now that is the big picture level of time wasting. What about the here and now? That's more your unintentional daily time management and scheduling kind of thing. You waste time when you don't use your time wisely or intentionally based on your goals. And you're often unaware of the amount of time that you're wasting. Now, you may or may not be aware that it's even happening at some level. It's really good to check in with yourself. The first thing that comes up for me is screen time and scrolling. I read some research recently from Pew Research that individuals age 60 and older now spend more than half of their daily leisure time, approximately 4 hours and 16 minutes, in front of screens, primarily watching TV or videos. And that's more than 10 years ago. So think about you. Now, at least our phones are helping us raise our awareness about this sort of thing. It's still pretty surprising, though. How do you react when you see how many hours you've been spending on your phone per week? Do you ask yourself what else you could be doing with that amount of time? Or even half of that amount of time? Even the way you wake up. How do you get yourself up and out of bed every morning? Do you do what you want to do? That is, if you set your alarm, do you get up immediately when it goes off? Once you're up, do you do what you had planned to do, or does something else get in your way? Do you start scrolling and waste time that way? Do you get distracted on your way to start your morning routine? What about nighttime? I struggle with going to bed when I'm tired, even though I have the goal of getting more sleep. Sometimes I waste another hour doing stuff, and stuff is in quotes. Sometimes it's scrolling. Sometimes it's doing some painting or cleaning up a pile of stuff. There's all kinds of things that you can do when you're looking to do something other than the thing you're supposed to be doing. And I'm doing those things instead of getting myself to bed. That's wasting valuable time in my books because there's a disconnect between what I want to do on purpose and what I actually do. So, what comes up for you? And also, don't get me wrong. Wasting valuable time can totally be fun. I often get distracted by creative ideas and make a big pivot to squeeze that in. Like it's like a squirrel. It's like, oh, I could paint this thing. Or just 2 days ago, I was curious about sewing onto photography, like a printed photograph. In the middle of doing something else, I quickly put orange thread into a needle and started to make some creative stitches on a photo I had printed out years ago from my trip to Costa Rica. I have a pile of photographs that look great on cards, so I know exactly where they are. There's usually 5 of each of them. I remembered I had this image. It was a close-up pile of folded textiles in bright colors from that trip to Costa Rica. And now this type of thing is a little confusing to me when it comes to wasting time, because I love being creative and I'd been curious about sewing on a printed photo for a long time. So it only really becomes wasting time if it delays or detracts from how you want to spend your time in that moment on purpose. You see what I mean? Like, it's nothing wrong with getting a fun idea. But if you do that fun idea, instead of doing the thing you want to do, does it serve you? Do you think of that as wasting time because it's not helping you get to that goal? Okay, so there's the big picture. When I talk to you in the podcast, I'm moving my arms around and I'm always like at the brink of knocking over my water bottle, and I just caught it wobbling away as I was flailing about. Anyway, so now let's take a look. There's the big picture and here and now of wasting time, the way I'm looking at it. So let's dig in a little bit more so that you can get even more perspective on this whole topic and know that you can take some steps forward to waste less valuable time in your life with greater confidence. Let's take a look at why wasting time can be such a big deal to women in the middle. Now, the first thing is what I mentioned briefly already, the pressure of time, what I like to call time urgency. There's a bit more to think about how time urgency comes up for you. Compare and despair might be one of the ways. Does that pop up for you? Maybe you started to see friends retire or downsize, especially on Facebook, right? There's all kinds of announcements. Maybe start new adventures, lots of good pictures. And this sort of thing can trigger comparison. This happened to me 2 years ago when my friends in the public sector and teaching unions all started to retire and post on Facebook. It seemed like all at once. So maybe because we're all kind of the same age, maybe it was all at once. I don't know. Maybe you notice yourself thinking that at your age, you should have it all figured out by now, whatever that means for you. That's another one. I catch myself thinking that I should be farther than I am. I should have it all figured out by now. Does that come up for you? Or maybe you've noticed that you're worrying more about taking fast action about something you care about, that if you don't do something or take some kind of action soon, you'll likely regret it later. So that can really weigh heavily on you. Another thing that can come up, and this comes up a lot with my clients, is perfectionism, especially around the fear of making the wrong decision about whatever it is moving forward in some way for you. You might be thinking there's only one right path and being afraid of choosing the wrong path. And that can bring up fear of failure and judgment. There's only one right path. Is that something that rolls around in your brain? Maybe it's wanting a guarantee of success before taking action. This was totally what happened to me when I was stuck for 5 years. I was afraid to become an entrepreneur because I wanted a guarantee, as if there is such a thing as a guarantee. In fact, that was the topic of last week's episode about certainty, episode 398. You might also be an overthinker, just spinning and spinning, making lists and reviewing all the options, asking your friends, all the things, all except making a decision. And this for sure keeps you in that weird space of what some people call analysis paralysis. It's hard to make a decision. Another thing that can be a little sneaky when it comes to wasting valuable time is common misconceptions about multitasking. Now, I remember when I first learned about this, and I did an episode on it early on in the podcast, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. Many women in the middle, including me, feel super efficient and productive when we multitask. But research consistently shows that it can lead to decreased efficiency and increased errors. Here are some key stats that highlight the inefficiencies and the way it can slow you down. And this is all related to multitasking. And I gotta say, this really surprised me when I first learned about this. So attempting to multitask can lead to a higher rate of actual mistakes, so more errors. And you are actually slower, and it can take you longer to do things. Multitasking can lead to slower progress on what you're trying to do. The constant switching between tasks, that is what multitasking is, requires your brain to readjust. It takes more time to do that, and it's harder to do that. So that switch tasking is what your brain is actually doing when you think you're multitasking like a queen. And you might be getting a lot of stuff done, but multitasking can't do everything that you want it to do. So you also might experience increased stress levels and more general overwhelm. So even though it may not be what you currently believe, monotasking, doing one task, and make that your most important task, doing that kind of thing on purpose can really help you be way more efficient, right? So multitasking might seem like a great way to save time. And when I think about multitasking, when I get in that mode, I just feel like such a boss. Like when I figure out the best route to take and what errands make the most sense to do in a clump and listening to a podcast and doing anything else that I think I can save time by doing it all at the same time. Wow. It's really not the outcome that you'll likely get. So single tasking is the way to go. And it's not only more productive and efficient, but it can also be better for your overall well-being. Focus is something that so many women in the middle complain about. It's just hard to focus and it's hard to slow down. And even though it might feel like when you're focusing on one thing, you're slowing down, in the end, you're not, compared to all the things you wanted to do at the same time. Anyway, it's just food for thought, but I'm fascinated by this and how hard it is for so many women our age to do one task at a time. The first thing that pops up as I'm saying this right now is that I hear it all the time that women in my community have trouble reading an actual book anymore because they can't multitask. When you sit and read a book, unlike a book like an audiobook, you have to sit there and do one thing. And it's just like you're stuck. You could feel so stuck when you're doing that. But there used to be such joy when you allowed it and you weren't thinking, oh, I could be doing more if I was doing this, this, and this. If you just allow yourself to enjoy that experience of reading and not doing anything else. Yeah, but so many women our age struggle with that. So anyway, that just popped into my head too. Okay, my friend, there's also this idea that you can create a perfect plan. Now, are you guilty of this? And you want a perfect plan because you love to plan. I'm with you. You probably like notebooks and colored markers and maybe some stickers to make your perfect plan. I love a pen with ink that erases, for example, or a pencil because I love it. I love writing that kind of stuff down, old school. And you think that having a perfect plan, old school or on a computer, it doesn't matter, but you kind of think it'll keep you safe from making mistakes and risking failure. But having the perfect plan helps you waste tons of time. And as you may know, or maybe you even have a sense that you may learn more after you take action because then you have new data that helps you continue to make decisions. It is totally a myth that gets in your way, keeps you stuck and spinning, and wasting valuable time. You're going to learn more after you take action than just making and trying to keep working on a plan, and never do the thing or even start to do the thing. So just think about that. Okay, let's check in. How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling amazing because you're not alone? And I'll provide you with some helpful tips? Or are you bummed out because you're now more clear than ever before that you are, in fact, wasting valuable time and you don't like it one bit? Don't worry, either category, I'm absolutely going to help you. And you're human and you're not alone. Now, before we get to the tips, I want to talk to you a little bit about the real cost of staying stuck in the time-wasting space that really isn't any fun. So think about what it actually means when you waste time, when you're in a spin, when you're not making decisions, and everything that's involved with not doing what you really want to do. Well, one thing is that you're waiting for something exciting to happen and not creating the life that you want, right? This is a really big deal because your amazing life won't just magically appear and invite you to come along. It doesn't work that way. Now, you're also inviting all kinds of hesitancy, avoidance, and second-guessing yourself. You're not in that space of trusting yourself that you can figure it out, that taking the next best step is a great idea, even if you don't have all the guarantees in the world. And even though you're sometimes doing lots of interesting things while you're wasting time, like me playing with that sewing on the photograph, the more you make decisions not to do what you want to prioritize, the less time you spend doing what is really important to you, which can create a ton of frustration, missed opportunities of gaining value from even doing the thing you want imperfectly and may even regret. Really think about that. So overall, you can just get tired of yourself, your mindset, and your behavior. It can be exhausting to spin and not move forward. So now how are we doing? Are you ready to think about what you can do right away to change the situation of you wasting valuable time? As a listener, you know that change like this has to start with your thinking. You knew I was going to say something about your thoughts. So the first tip is for you to shift your perspective and tweak your thinking. So make a little shift. Be open about how you're thinking about this. So to do this, ask yourself, how would you have to feel to do the thing you want to do? If you don't want to look at your phone the minute your alarm goes off in the morning, how would you have to feel to just get up, stretch, take a shower, meditate, whatever you like to do? Would you have to feel motivated, proud, disciplined, confident? What is it for you? So pick the feeling that you think would help you the most, and then ask yourself, what would I have to think to create that feeling? What would I have to think to create motivation or to create pride or confidence that I'm going to have my own back and do what I want? What would you have to think? Maybe something like this. Here's two examples. I'm learning that not looking at my phone is easier than I thought. Or this thought, I'm excited to save 30 minutes a day by getting up the way I want to. Play with this and try on a few new thoughts for size. Experiment with them and see how you do. Tweak again if it's not a good fit. Okay, number 2, embrace the idea that you can change your mind and the sky won't fall. I find that making decisions, it doesn't have to be as heavy as it was when we were younger or planning out farther in advance, like for our education or having children or even the desire to be in a job for 20 or 30 years. Remember what that was like? Like it really felt like we were planning for an extended period of time. My experience has been that at our age and stage, you can often try something and change your mind without giant consequences. So check your thoughts about this because it might actually help you move forward. Exploring and playing with new ideas and options can be a really good thing, and it gives you more data. It helps you continue to know yourself better and keep moving forward. And finally, number 3, I love the idea of developing a regret-proof mindset. Learn to trust yourself, to tune into your tuition, your thoughts and your feelings, and lean in rather than relying solely on your logical brain. What would it feel like for you to commit to making the most of your time in your next chapter, knowing that you're actively and intentionally trying to reduce the likelihood of having regrets? What might your future self have to say about this? Remember, she knows you better than anyone else in the world. She really knows you and has your back. So overall, I choose to believe that I'm not out of time yet, and I'm getting better and better at knowing what I want. When you add developing the confidence and courage to go after what's most important to you, that, my friend, is a recipe for a happy and fulfilled life. This can be your life too, and I can help you. That's exactly what we're up to in the Women in the Middle Academy. Life is too short to waste time feeling stuck, so please don't waste another minute. Speaking of wasting time, head over to www.talktosusie.com and book your free momentum call to explore what's next for you and stop spinning already. I am here for you. Okay, that is it for this episode. As you know, my focus as a midlife coach is to help you waste less time spinning and feeling stuck, just like we were talking about in today's episode. This is what regret-proofing your life is all about. I think that being the queen of your brain domain is the best way to be. And if you want to get unstuck and more clear about your next chapter than ever before, you really have to check out the Women in the Middle Academy. Don't waste another second feeling stuck. Book your momentum call and we will take it from there. Head over to www.talktosusie.com. For show notes and links, go to www.susierosenstein.com and click on the podcast tab and look for episode 399. You'll also see a link there for my new show, The Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, which is all about the reality of running your business when you're a midlife gal. It's also on iTunes, Spotify, and all the places. So let's do this, ladies. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week, which is a milestone episode number 400. And I have something special planned, so don't miss it. Talk soon.